During the 1500s, we were in the midst of the Renaissance in Europe. At this time, there was a great range of art being produced, from beautiful paintings that depicted scenes from Greek and Roman mythology and nature, to dazzling altarpieces that were built for cathedrals. One of many such wonderful altarpieces is held at the Nelson Atkins Museum in Kansas City, Missouri. As I was looking for inspiration for this very podcast, I came face to face with many religious paintings, but it was the altarpiece, Scenes from the Life of Christ, that caught my eye. Hello, my name is Mackenzie Wilcoxon, and I am a freshman at Northwest Missouri State University. I decided to create the Art Wants What It Wants podcast for one of my favorite classes, Art Appreciation. I was dying to have an excuse to explore the Nelson Atkins Museum after truly discovering my appreciation for art. Once I had already spent about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, searching for the art piece that tugged at my heart, I found that tug in a wooden altarpiece that was created sometime between 1500 and 1525. The only hint of the artist that I could find was that he worked in Northern Europe because it was labeled a Flemish art piece. This brought me into an entirely new world of art, ready to be explored, the Renaissance era. I wanted to find art that was similar to the wood carving that captured my heart. Thankfully, I found the artworks of Tilman Riemenschneider, who seemed to be a kindred spirit with my artist. Riemenschneider also made wood-carved altarpieces in Northern Europe during the Renaissance. Artwork around the 16th century dealt with the very ideas of nature, how the individual fit into the society, and the biggest fad at this time, the passion for religion, specifically Christianity. At this time, different religious artwork was being produced. There is a reason that there is so much interest today in the Renaissance. It was a time for humanistic pursuits, civic virtue, piety, and artistic developments that would shape the very society we inhabit today. Through the religious sculptures and paintings of the Renaissance era, we can see all the things that society embodied at this time. There was no one better to convey these ideals than Tilman Riemenschneider. Riemenschneider was an artist of diverse and complex background. He seemed to be like all other artists until 1480, when he veered away from late Gothic art. He was a naturalist, whereas the art around him was strictly religious. There were many pieces of Gothic art that depicted heaven and Mother Mary. However, the transition from this period explored ideas past religion, such as science, or explored religious art in a different way. Like most artists who strayed from the accepted norms, his art was rejected because of the gentle yet direct way that he conveyed his messages. His style consisted of intricate detail, scenes that were both posed and natural looking, and you could feel what both artist and art were feeling. He did not wish to conform to the ideologies of the traditional late Gothic period. This idea of having pure and raw emotion was something that the late Gothic period could not comprehend. Therefore, it was an era that was meant to come to an end. Riemenschneider's art came to life with expression, and late Gothic art would only pose on a page. However, as we can see today, Riemenschneider's art was leading to an entirely new era that turned into the Renaissance. The Renaissance was an inspiration to following eras which would continue these techniques of expression. Riemenschneider created many groundbreaking art pieces in his time. He created a funerary monument for Prince Rudolf von Skärensberg, Bishop of Wurzburg. It was made from carved red Salzburg marble and gray Maine sandstone. The monument showed the Bishop Rudolph with a staff in his left hand and with a sword strapped to his right hip. There are also 6 shields. 2 of the shields are being held by lions at the bottom of the monument, and 2 are being held by angels at the top of the monument. The last 2 shields are at the sides of Bishop Rudolph. There are also 2 angels at the bottom, holding what looks to be a stone of inscription. All of Riemenschneider's work has a purpose through every bit of marble he shapes. Here it shows divinity and the armor of God, such as the shield and sword, along with the historical significance of these items at the time. And to top it off, the bishop is in the center. taking up most of the monument and looking upwards, or rather, he is looking at the heavens, the destination he believed that he would head toward after his death. Bishop Rudolph admired Riemenschneider's ability to convey his religious feelings in his artwork. In return, Riemenschneider wanted to honor the bishop with a beautiful religious monument that revealed the bishop's devotion to Christ. This sculpture was much simpler than most of Riemenschneider's paintings and sculptures, but it is still just as remarkable. Another piece of artwork that Riemenschneider created was Christ's entry into Jerusalem, which was heavily influenced by a work of the same subject by the late Gothic artist Martin Schongauer. If you were to take a quick glance at the art piece, you would think that they were exactly the same. Jesus riding into Jerusalem on a mule with his disciples. However, the longer you look at the two pieces of art, not only do you realize that the mediums are entirely different, but so too are the artistic styles. One seems to look as though it was in a Gothic era, whereas the second, you see someone has taken on a much more sophisticated and natural view of the artwork. Riemenschneider's interpretation was a wood carving that had more realistic and detailed features. It's as though you were there in the moment with Christ himself. He also added vines at the top of the artwork as well. He seemed to put vines with thorns in his carvings often. As for Schongauer, it is still beautiful, but in a historical way. With both art pieces, you can tell which one Christ is, but with Schongauer's, it is a black and white drawing. It is living within the pages and gives you a small glimpse of what this moment might have been like. We can see from just these two examples that Riemenschneider's goal was not to blend in with the crowd. He was exploring familiar subjects in an intentionally new and innovative style. He was a skilled sculptor, and one of his favorite and most frequently used mediums was wood carving. Between 1505 and 1510, Riemenschneider created the Assumption of the Virgin art piece. This artwork, carved in lime wood, shows the Virgin Mary ascending into the heavens, and she is surrounded by the apostles who witnessed her leaving earth. On the predella, also known as the platform on which the altar rests, are three scenes. There is the Adoration of the Magi on the left, and to its right is Christ and the Doctors art piece that was set to be after Christ was just brought into the world. Then the third and central scene that once was present held the miraculous hosts that provided the raison d'être for the altar and the church. This shrine is complemented with swinging doors on the second register out of three. On the doors is the depicted life of Mary, and on top of the shrine there is Mary, and above her are two angels, and to her left is Jesus, and on her right is God the Father. The entire art piece is filled with thorny vines that wind through and unify the entire work. Because of these vines and scenes, it shows the belief that she gave birth to the Messiah. These wooden altar pieces were crafted the same way you might create any regular building or monument. It begins with an idea, and from that idea you create a drawing. Once you have created a sketch of what your altarpiece will look like, it then turns into a blueprint for specialists to come in and work their magic to carve the intricate altarpieces we see today. As for their significance, these types of religious artwork were very important to the church, especially altarpieces, because they form the backdrop for the church service, which was centered around the main altar. The altarpieces depicted scenes from the Bible that connected the biblical past to the present by using the lives of Christ and the saints as a model for Christian worshippers to emulate. The same is true for the beautiful altarpiece Scenes from the Life of Christ that is displayed in the Nelson Atkins Museum. It depicts 5 biblical scenes from the life of Christ before, during, and after his crucifixion. The first scene, located on the far left, shows Christ after his arrest by the Romans when he was tied to a post and whipped, being taunted by onlookers. The second scene from the left depicts Christ carrying the cross to the place of the skull, which is called Golgotha in Aramaic. The central scene is, of course, the Crucifixion. Here is where you can see the 2 criminals on either side of him and the guards who hoisted him up. We can also note the appearance of the spear that pierced Jesus' side, later named the Spear of Destiny. Next, positioned to the right of the crucifixion scene is the burial scene. There are the women who came from Galilee surrounding him, but there are also 2 men present in the scene. In the Gospel of Luke, it said that a man named Joseph took his body. But in the Gospel of John, the disciple whom Jesus loved was also there, which would have been John. The final scene at the far right was Jesus' resurrection, but instead of emerging from the cave-like tomb, he comes out of a burial vault. The composition of our anonymous artist is almost the exact same scene that Master A.G., a popular German artist in the late 15th century, Martin Schonger, and of course Riemenschneider depicted. However, there are important differences. In this particular artwork, there is a man puncturing Jesus' side with the spear of destiny, no angels to be found, and sleeping guards with some witnesses. But in Master A.G.'s, Schonger's, and Riemenschneider's versions, the man piercing Jesus' side is absent, and they include angels, and Christ is carrying a crusader-like flag. Although we do not know the name of the artist who created the altarpiece, we do know that it was created somewhere between 1500 and 1525 by a Flemish artist. We also know a good bit about the popularity and significance of this type of art in the 16th century. This type of artwork was a game changer for its time, and it was an inspiration to art that preceded it. What we believe now to be a classic design was a revolutionary approach taken by Northern Renaissance artists. From this art, we have created songs, poetry, films, intellectual conversations, and papers. Artists like these helped to carve our very outlook on sculptures in society. They showed us that images can be more powerful than words in conveying a story. Renaissance altarpieces inspired faith in and outside of the church. Would you call it old-fashioned art or visionary art? Well, that all depends on the perspective of the critic. So I will leave you with this challenge. What is your perspective? Are these sculptures just a thing of the past, or are they still carving out our future? Again, my name is Mackenzie Wilcoxon, and thanks for tuning into the Art Wants What It Wants podcast. See you next time.